Real quick, other types of property fraud. Michigan is the fastest grow, is the top 5 states where fraud is happening in all kinds of property. It's the fastest growing white collar crime in America, actually, according to the FBI. We have, it's very easy to commit fraud in Michigan. We talked about how my office has very little power to actually reject documents based on frauds. In fact, you can come to the counter actually and say, Curtis, I'm committing a fraud today, and as long as your document's in recordable form, I legally have to take it. Now, I will report you, but I still have to take it. So, in order to combat that, the FBI says, we'd like you to, every citizen to come to my office to check all the signatures on file once every 6 months. And we think that's ridiculous. Because if you did that, our office was shut down, we had 11 people. So what we created was the property fraud alert system. And what allows you to do, I think it's the next slide, yeah. There's actually a website or phone number you can go to. And this is the one thing I ask people to do when they actually go home from these actual sessions. You can sign up online or the phone number. You give us an email address or a phone number. And then a name you want searched. And then in the future, if anything's ever filed in your name in Ingham County, anything, tax lien, sheriff deed, any documents, you get an email or phone call telling you that happened. So you'll have instant access to information of the information that's filed in my office. If you know about it, don't worry about it. But if you don't know about it, please contact us immediately, because the way fraud happens is quickly. So this gives you almost as much information as the criminal. Other types of scams, we have deed retrieval services. We have companies that actually will go out and will try to sell you a copy of your own deed. They say that it's difficult to get. They charge you between $50 and $80. And the funny thing about that is that in my office it'll cost you usually, depending on how long the document is, $1 to $2. It's a buck or two a page. It's a buck a page, but you know. So they're actually tricking people and saying, "Oh, it's really difficult to get a copy of your deed." It's not difficult. You can get online, mail a request to my office. You can stop by in Mason. We produce documents every day. The way I found out about this actually, I had my child's preschool teacher. I was picking her up one day and she said, "I got to talk to you about your office." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." She goes, "I have a real problem." She said, "I ordered a document. 3 months ago, and I still haven't gotten it." I said, "Well, that's impossible because we produce copies every day." She said, "Yeah, well, I called your 1-800 number." I said, "Ma'am, I don't have a 1-800 number." And she, sure enough, got caught up in one of these companies, and they charge her $50. And they're so entrepreneurial or such good scammers that they want to make a little extra profit, so they actually will bundle the amounts, the different requests, that also get them all at once. So they'll wait 3 months. And then if somebody calls and says, "Where's the document?" they say, "Oh, that register of deeds, it takes a long time." So they're still tricking people every once in a while. We usually get about 50 to 100 requests a year for copies from this outfit. We're trying to change state law to make it more difficult, but if you get a request, just throw it away or mail it to me, because I actually like to see it. Because we try to get the word out about when they're doing it. Well, this is a slide we throw in every presentation we do. You know, when you're transferring property, when you're signing a mortgage, any of those things, you know, this is a legal document that actually can affect the rest of your life. So having someone from legal aid or a lawyer or somebody who has some knowledge of land law review the document before you actually sign it is a good idea. So we, in general, try to encourage people to do that. So what has been the effect? What's the big picture? What's happening in the county? So in 2000, our foreclosures were around 400 people a year losing their house to foreclosure. Obviously too many, but a relatively small amount. And this is the trend you've seen. So over the last 3 years, that number is between 1,600 and 1,800 every year. So we have between double or triple, depending on which years you're using, the amount of foreclosures that are actually happening in Ingham County. And that has had a dramatic effect on the tax base. Now the county's wealth, what all the property was worth in Ingham County in 2009 was $7.5 billion. And we've lost over $700 million, 9% of taxable value in just a very short amount of time, in 2 years. So again, and you can see how it's affecting all of us. This is, we are all in this together, and that's really the, it's a scary thing to realize what a big drop we've had. I mean, 9% of all of our value, all the property, in just 2 years. If you're going through foreclosure, if you know somebody who's going through foreclosure, you don't have to pay for financial counseling. Financial counseling programs are available to you. These are all the different help programs that are available. You can call 211. You don't need to be going, you don't need to already be in foreclosure to call these programs. If you know you're headed there, being more proactive is actually a better move in many ways. Don't ignore the problem. I think it's hard to get people that are going through foreclosure out to community meetings. And that's why we have to spread the word out there afterward, because I think too often people shut their eyes because they don't want to see the train coming. And it's understandable because there's a lot of fear when you're losing your home. The problem we have with that is that those are the people that lose their homes, and not the people that work don't, and some of them do too. But the more proactive steps you take, the better chance it is of keeping your home. So get the financial education. We used to say in these programs, the bank doesn't want to take your home. We don't say that any longer because of everything we've seen. So unfortunately, we don't say that any longer. But we do think that these are good things to do. Open all the mail from your lender. You might receive notices. One's from the loss mitigation department, one's from the foreclosure lawyer, one's from a different section of the bank. You got to respond to each one of those, because trust me, one side has no idea what the other side is doing. During the federal bailout, we talked about the words "too big to fail." I think in reality, these banks are too big to run. They don't know what's actually going on very often between one side and the other. So if you are unable to make your payments immediately, contact your mortgage servicer, be polite, explain why you're not going to be able to make your payment, respond to all communication, inform that you're not intentionally trying to default on your loan. There are people who intentionally walked away from properties, so it is good to inform them that that's not your intention. Now, prioritize your spending. Obviously, your house is your most important asset, and so house payments should come before credit card debt, other things. They can't take your house for not making those kind of payments. Avoid foreclosure prevention companies. There are going to be people out. The problem with the current law, as we talked about, is your name goes on a list if you're going into foreclosure. They publish your name in a paper called the Legal News. And really nobody reads it except for two lawyers. Good lawyers.
And it's actually owned by a foreclosure mill.
Yeah, actually Trot owns, one of the foreclosure mills actually owns this paper. But so on one side you have those people read it. The other people that read it are scam writers. Because they know that they can get a list of who's in trouble in the community. So you become a target fairly quickly for all these different kinds of scams. So you don't have to pay money for you don't have to pay money for financial counseling. We have financial counseling available for you in Ingham County. You don't have to pay money. We actually had a couple different examples. We had two companies in Florida that on the same day happened to contact two different residents in Ingham County that we put two and two together at the same time. These were both actually, Todd actually found this part out, actually. Todd Haywood from Michigan Messenger. But they actually, the way they found this out, actually, was because they were both actually formed on the same day. So we in the same town, Palm Beach, Florida. So we kind of knew that they were formed by the same people because, you know, that's a lot of coincidence. But anyways, the two companies, one of them was they were going to sell you a computer program that was going to get you a modification on your mortgage. You know, it sounds great. You know, you just buy a computer program for $795, and that would get you a modification.
Are you talking about the Rust report?
What was that?
Are you talking about the
No.
Rust report?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So it was actually Home for Half, it was called. It actually looked like an Obama re-election campaign website, but it wasn't. They had no connection with the Obama campaign.
That did change.
What was that?
That did change after.
That did change after the story, because they had a big picture of President Obama, and they had the hope symbol and everything else, because they made it seem like they were, you know, they were really part of the Obama administration. And what they were, when I called, I pretended to be a citizen in trouble. And, you know, it's illegal to actually sell modification scams in Florida. So they wouldn't talk to me at first about the modification. They wanted to talk about the computer program. But then every time I said, well, give me some details about the computer program, they said, oh, well, you know, we're going to save your house. You don't need to know any of those details about that computer program. And really, I mean, it's just a scam. I mean, no computer program's going to get you a modification. We had another person who they were going to, for $5,000, this is for a little higher end scam. They couldn't get you on the $800, they tried to get you on the $5,000. This was they were going to, $5,000, you could join a mass joinder lawsuit that they were going to find you an attorney and they would file suit for you. Now, a couple things. Attorneys don't call you at home. They advertise, but they don't make cold calls to you. So I called them back and pretended again to be somebody in trouble. And I kept saying, well, when do I get to talk to an attorney? And they said, oh, well, right after you give me that $5,000, we're going to find you an attorney. Well, these are, you know, these are scams. But when you're desperate, the constituent that called Perry was almost crying, worrying that she lost her last chance to keep her home. She said, oh my God, should I have done this? I could have actually saved my property. But when you're desperate, you'll fall for a lot of things. It's part of the problem with the current law. If we had a foreclosure by judiciary, each person would actually have an opportunity at least to talk to a lawyer before they actually got to this point. And we wouldn't actually have to publish a name in the newspaper before they've ever talked to anybody, and the first person they can get to them is a scammer. It's not right. We need to change the law. If you see one of these scams, you get a phone call. This is the phone number to call to help the Federal Trade Commission. They actually had a group in Lansing to actually investigate some of this stuff, so they gave us that number to call. Or online, you go to the Michigan Attorney General's office. Or call my office. We actually got one tonight. When we came here, actually gave us an example of somebody who called and basically said they were from my office. They certainly weren't, because I don't have any. What was the name?
Frank Stein.
Frank Stein. I don't have any Frank Steins in my office, so we got
Middle initial N?
Yeah, we have you know, we only have 11 employees and 3 of them are men. It's not Patrick, Tom, or Brian, so I know we don't have a Frank. So, but somebody basically called and said they were from my office and that they were going to help them, and it's what happens. Unfortunately, people become targets, and we need to go out and fight back on this stuff. Not only from the banks, but also from the scammers. Yes?
Now there's 2 levels. There's the state level where you need legislation to stop the scams, and then there's also the federal level. There's 13 million homes in danger of foreclosure. That's a lot of loans. Couldn't this, is the stumbling block the GOP at the state level and at the federal level?
You know, this is a county paid for event, so I don't want to blame one part or the other. I mean, there are problems on both sides. I will say that when Mitt Romney said last week that we should just allow for all of this foreclosures to hit rock bottom and that we shouldn't be slowing down the process, I was offended. See, I think it's a very let them eat cake attitude to this whole thing. I mean, very, it's nice for somebody who has money to be able to say, let these foreclosures go through. Let's get people out of their home, and investors will eventually get there, and they can still rent those properties. It's not what the American dream was about. And we shouldn't allow companies to actually do this to people and commit these crimes. If you or I committed forgery or fraud, we go to jail. And Bonnie, to be honest with your question, yeah, there are problems on the Republican side, but I want to be very clear. The problem is money in politics, if you really want to get into it, on both sides. I mean, the corporations and banks to become some of the major constituents that get people elected to Congress. And that's why laws don't change. That's why people don't get prosecuted. That's why these things don't go as far as they should. I mean, if you care about any issue like this, a progressive issue, we should change our campaign finance system, because the amount of money that's actually involved in the campaigns makes it very hard to prosecute these people. So instead of talking about who's going to jail for all this forgery and fraud, what we're talking about is how much money are the banks going to have to pay.
The state's attorneys general are negotiating with some of the banks for a bailout deal on the robo-signing issues.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the state's attorneys general are balking at the deal.
Yep.
What will happen to that money if it's ever collected, and where is it going to go, and will it actually help any homeowners?
It's a great question. I think the answer is you don't know unless you're in the middle of those negotiations. I mean, like, if you're not actually in the middle of negotiations, you don't. The attorney generals, when they get amounts of money back, sometimes the settlements will actually have specifically where the money is supposed to go in the settlement. But we don't know where it's going to go. In my opinion, I'm not in favor of signing on if it gives them immunity from criminal prosecution. I mean, I firmly believe, if you went down to the grocery store and you forged somebody's name on a check, or if you forged somebody's name on a mortgage, or if you, forged your name on your neighbor's quitclaim deed and tried to take their house, you'd go to jail. I guarantee it. People are prosecuted every day for forgery. I do not understand how a pattern of forgery to take people's homes, to take due process away. That's what they took from people. I'm not saying these people went and I got to foreclose on eventually. A lot of them would have. But it would have taken more time, more money, and it would have been done correctly. So they stole due process and time from these people. In a bad economy, time's all you need, right? I mean, 2 months, you might actually have found a job. You might have actually gotten a friend to actually help you out. You might have actually had a family member that was willing to help you out. If you give them somebody 2 more months, that's worth a lot to people in their home. But they took that away from people. They filed these fraudulent documents to speed up the process, to make it cheaper for them. We shouldn't allow it to happen. And these people that did that, they stole these people's due process, that took these homes illegally, should be prosecuted under the full extent of the law. Same way somebody did it at the local grocery store would. They're not above the law just because they have money. That's about all right. Yeah. If anybody has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I appreciate you coming out.
What should be the first thing they do? Say they're 2-3 months behind. What's the very first thing they should do?
If you're 2 or 3 months behind, call a financial counsel. But we have to call 211 on their 211 will get you United Way. United Way has been paid. System has been paid for by the county. They'll actually refer you directly to a financial counselor. The first thing they're going to want to see is all your financials to make sure that see what you qualify for. See if there's any red herrings that could actually fix your budget relatively quickly. But that's the first thing. If you know you're going to foreclosure, I mean, if they've said they're basically done working with you, then call You'll get a letter basically saying that you have 90 days. That if you want to take advantage of the 90-day law to actually, I'm sorry, you get a letter saying, do you want to take advantage of the 90-day law to actually have a negotiation period with your bank? Immediately accept that letter and say yes. That's one of the most important things you can do, because if you don't return that letter, you don't respond to it, you don't get the 90 days. In that 90 days, that gives you an opportunity to do a couple things. One, continue meeting with your financial counselor. Two, have a meeting with the bank. Now, I'm not saying that the law is working out great. There are some problems with it too, because oftentimes the bank will send a they send a designee to the meeting, and most of the time that designee is actually a member of the foreclosure company. So that's hard. But we are working on modifications for people. It's not a perfect process. So yes.
Can I jump in here and talk about modifications for like 2 minutes?
Sure.
If your bank tells you, we've discovered this about 1.5 years ago.